So, good afternoon, Pedro. This is Jonathan Ayerst from Remix Ensemble with Pedro Amaral, composer and pianist and conductor and music director of Metropolitanum at the moment, yes?
Yes. Hello, Jonathan. This is a pleasure to be with you. I have very good memories of you playing my music, so it's a pleasure for me to be in dialogue with you.
No, it's a pleasure for us. So I'd like to start, first of all, with your early memories, your early training. You grew up in Lisbon, is that right? How did you know? Yes, you grew up in Lisbon.
I did, yes.
What brought you to music and to composition?
I think, my parents, they weren't musicians, but they liked music very much, and they listened classical music, and not only classical. My mother had fantastic música popular brasileira disco library at home. I remember I grew up with many different kinds of music. Not only classic, as I say, and this was part of my initiation, not only as a musician, as a young student, but as a man, as a person.
Yes.
And from a certain point of my life, because my father was military. From a certain point of my life, I was in internal college, and there was an orchestra, and I started to play an instrument, saxophone. It was my second instrument, because at home I already had started with piano lessons, and then in the college. I was initiated to the saxophone, and during my years in the college, I played and I learned and I played every day, a lot, studied a lot, and I participated in the orchestra, the orchestra of the college. That was important for me, but for me it was simply, I don't know, something a part of my daily diet.
Okay. It's unusual to end up with such a strong interest in classical music as a saxophonist.
Yes, but you know, in a college, the orchestra was a wind orchestra.
Okay.
We had no string instruments, so that was immediately like that. What we in Portuguese we say a banda.
Yes, I know.
Not military banda, but kind of kind of wind orchestra, woodwind.
I know that the saxophone was originally designed as a classical instrument, but it didn't end up that way.
Indeed. Yeah. But it never really entered the orchestra, and when it entered, it was by the door of the jazz influenced music.
Yes,
more or less. Yeah. And I started like that, and I don't know exactly why, but in the age of 14, I had a very strong changement in my mind. An epiphany, if you want. Suddenly I knew that was what I wanted to do in my life, music, and especially composing.
Right.
Nothing at all interested me except composing. I didn't want to be a huge pianist or less a saxophonist, but piano was my first instrument, and I still played every day. But I didn't want to be a pianist at all. I never thought really about conducting at that age, but composing was what interested me.
Okay. Did you have a particular figure in mind, or was it just the idea of being creative?
It was at first the idea of being creative, and I improvised a lot, for not only for me but for my friends, every evening in the college, because we were there
Yes.
day and night. And every evening I did these improvisation things for my mates.
Nice.
And that was a very tonal thing, you see, but a classical way. But I knew nothing. I didn't know how to
Yes.
build up a form. I didn't know that.
Yes.
I didn't study contrapoint yet at the age of 12 or 13. I didn't. And then when I realized I wanted to do that, for me the first very important thing was, because I started to write down what I composed, and I realized I knew nothing, so I had to learn everything.
Yes.
And I wanted to learn as fast as I could. So in the college we have this particular thing. We had not only the weekend in the parents' house, but also the Wednesday afternoon. We could after lunch we could go out of the college and stay a little outside. And I took my lessons in the Academia de Amadores de Música, because it was the only place where I could choose exactly the schedule for my courses. So I started, and very, very fast, in some years after I had all this done.
Yes, very nice. At some point you decided to go to Paris to study with Emmanuel Nunes. Is that right?
Yes, that was later, because when I entered when I was still in the college and I entered the Academia de Amadores de Música, I realized that Lopes-Graça was there giving lectures. And suddenly I was very close to him, and I started to be his pupil in his house.
Okay.
Every Sunday I went to his house. He was the professor before, 20 years before, of Emmanuel Nunes.
Okay.
30 years before. 30 years earlier. He was teacher of Emmanuel Nunes. So he told me about him, and I remember I saw an announcement of a lecture of Emmanuel in Gulbenkian, because at that time Emmanuel gave 2 times a year lectures in Gulbenkian for young composers. So I was there in one of the first of the many lectures I followed. And I understood quickly what I had to do. I wanted to study with him in a foreign country where he was in Germany at that time. But first I had to have a diploma, so I started Escola Superior de Música, music superior school in Lisbon, which was very important for me. I learned a lot with Professor Bachmann, Christopher Bachmann. Great teacher, fantastic man and teacher, from whom I learned enormously, and he formed our generation of composers in Portugal. And so after that, in 1994, I had all the conditions to go to and study abroad with Emmanuel. But the question is that some months before the ending of my courses here in Lisbon, Emmanuel took a new post in Paris. He was offered the position of teacher at the Conservatoire of Paris Superior Conservatoire, and so I didn't make the examens for Freiburg where he was before, but Paris directly. Yes, so we entered in the same year. He as a teacher and me as a student.
Emmanuel Nunes, his music is so personal, and how is it studying with someone like that? I mean, how is it possible to develop your own style with someone like that?
But Emmanuel was, as you say, absolutely extremely original and personal. Use your words, but he never imposed an idea to a student. Never. I don't have that memory, at least, at all. Well, I mean, if you wanted to make, I don't know, tonal music or something like that, you wouldn't work with him. It wouldn't work, of course.
Yeah, okay.
Or minimal music, of course, it wouldn't work.
Yes, yeah.
Of course. But the interesting thing with Emmanuel was that his courses, they were less about the specific things in music, like notes and rhythms or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes, of course, but especially, they were kind of mix of philosophy and the psychoanalysis, because it was like, what is the correspondence in yourself with this that you write? You see.
Okay.
Those kind of fundamental things.
Yes, yeah.
And this was very, very, very interesting to me and important for me. But if I didn't have before the how do you say, the field of how to write, how to make a good counterpoint, a good harmony, etc. I couldn't have.
You wouldn't have been able to respond to this type of teaching. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, very nice. We have a particular piece in mind. I have a particular piece in mind, which is the Deux Portraits Imaginaires, which I've played a number of times now with Remix Ensemble, but also with you in Lisbon. This piece actually reminds me a little bit of Pierre Boulez in language. Would you agree with that? Is Pierre Boulez an influence on you?
Yes, absolutely, and maybe less the gesture than again, one fundamental thing is that in the contemporary music you have many different fields, but you have a very specific field, which was not field, a way to operate, let's say. Yes. That was Boulez one, and in which verticality was very important. I mean, harmony was extremely important for him.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he developed all quantity of techniques,
yes.
And from the very beginning with what we call a multiplication of chords, yes. which means Boulez understood that in Schoenberg music, even a little in Berg, there was a contradiction between the vertical space and the horizontal space.
Mm-hmm.
Contradiction which doesn't exist in tonal music.
Yes.
The vertical rule, of course, depends on the horizontal one, and vice versa.
Yes.
But not in Schoenberg's music, and not in the early Boulez music. Not at all in Stockhausen music, for instance.
Yeah.
In Berry, it's mixed. But and this aspect was very important for me. I didn't want to copy the multiplication technique of Boulez. I did it as an exercise, but I never did it in a piece of mine. But I arranged very quickly my own techniques.
Yes.
In order to build up very concrete and more than concrete, functional harmony. Not tonal at all, but functional. And this word is very important, functional harmonies. So in this sense, I followed completely the Boulez logic, actually.
There's a kind of color there as well. I think this is a little bit what I understand from what you're saying with the vertical element. Is this, if you like, the second Viennese school is more concerned with line, with the logic of line and voice leading. The French, in a way, have this tradition of color, of what, rather than leaving the vertical components as a kind of emergent property of their lines. They actually like to focus a little bit more on these relationships. This is something I see as a kind of French influence, is this feeling of color and lightness of texture as well.
Yeah, it is absolutely. Even if I think in music for one instrument, a single instrument, I always think vertically. Yeah. Like in this implicit polyphony from Bach, for instance.
Yes.
When Bach composes a line for arpeggio line for cello, of course he thinks of an harmony. Yes. And even when I compose for a single instrument, a melodic instrument, say, I always think vertically. Yes. I think that came from Boulez, and for me it's the main aspect that I took from Pierre. Yes.
So would these elements be characteristic of your work now, or is this a period of the past now? Where are you now with your writing in relation to this piece?
I wrote very few music in the last years.
Yeah.
My biggest project, the latest one, was in 2016-17. It was an opera.
Yes.
Because of my life as a conductor. But I'm working a lot in a new piece,
right?
And I think my thought is exactly in the same way.
Okay.
I think always very vertically, and all the lines are inscribed, or from the lines derivates a vertical. Yes.
No, I like this very much, because that's what I'm interested also as a musician. You know, with improvising, is how can things be functional? How can things be logical? What elements do you bring together? When people listen to your music, what do you want them to hear? And it's a difficult question, and you take your time to think about it. We talk about the logic of counterpoint, the things, the elements of music which we study, functional harmony, the relationship between you and you as a person and what you write. All that comes together in a piece, and somebody hears it in the concert hall, possibly for the first time, possibly for the second time. What is it that you would hope that they would receive or understand in your music from listening?
This is a very interesting question, and I don't think it's a difficult one at all.
Okay.
Because different things. I'd like to start to say that Emmanuel, this was one of the important things of Emmanuel teaching. That was you must guide your audience. He always said that you must guide your audience. That was very important in him. And indeed, for me, it's very easy, because I always think of a fundamental element that guides your attention. And I think my music, not in a very abstract way at all. I think my music, as in a novel, for instance.
Yes.
There are a few writers that influenced me a lot,
yes.
as much as some composers,
yeah.
and this way music can tell a story, like in the end of the 19th century or the beginning of the 20th century, for instance. I love very much Berg music, because Berg tells you a story in the same way that Proust tells you a story. And you can, through his lines, follow this narration, this narration.
Yes.
I don't know if the word is in English.
No. The narrative of the music. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, this is essential. So when I was younger, I didn't have a very acute way to do this, and sometimes I wrote things which makes the attention what do you say?
Where your attention wanders, or your attention is dispersed in some way.
Dispersed was the word I was looking for. Exactly. And now I know better how to focus exactly my audience. But
it's in my experience, it's not such an easy thing, because when a composer has it, it's obvious. There's a kind of a logic. You think, yeah, of course. But this is, finding that clarity is not so simple as it.
No, indeed. But let me tell you one thing, because there is another question in your question. Should someone understand your music immediately at first sight, at the first audition? Of course, not in a whole, of course, but I think, in my way to think music and arts in general, you should have epidermic, very sensitive contact, an immediate contact with your public. Of course, if he listens a second and the third and the fourth time, you will go deeper.
Yes.
But you should build up musical construction that have these both things.
Yes.
A very superficial, almost sensual sensitivity for your listener, and the deepest part,
the doorway
in which you go absolutely
to the piece. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. This is very interesting and very nice to talk to you about this.
It was a pleasure.
We will also be broadcasting a performance of a recording that we made with Remix Ensemble of Deux Portraits Imaginaires of your composing. So that's it from me. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jonathan.
Bye-bye.
See you. Best.